going to get started, what I would like to do is start with the fabulous introduction. So if I can start to my left.
Oh, okay. I'm William C. Dietz, Bill, if you will, and I'm a science fiction author. Write a lot of military science fiction, as well as other stuff. And I've done, as regards this panel, I've written a lot of tie-in novels for properties like Star Wars and Halo and Hitman and Mass Effect and Resistance and StarCraft. So I've been through the mill, the process, if you will, of turning game universes into books. And there's kind of two flavors of that, which we may get into, which would be one, a straight-ahead novelization of a game, which is just taking it and turning it into a book, and then a book inspired by a game, which are really two different things. So that's what I might bring to the table.
Cool. Martha?
I'm Martha Wells. I'm mostly a fantasy writer. My first book came out in 1993. I have about 19 books, 20 books out. My most recent series is the Books of the Raxura fantasy novels. The last one came out, or the next to last one came out, The Edge of Worlds, in April. I've written media tie-ins. I've done 2 Stargate Atlantis novels and a Star Wars novel called Razor's Edge. Came out in 2013.
Christopher Kastensmidt. I started in the video games industry in '97. Started working with literature, publishing literature in 2004, comics in 2010, and TV movies in 2014. So I've been, every 4, 5, 6 years, I go into a new media. I've been working with transmedia a lot. I've been working on projects for a lot of different companies, and I've been working on a lot of my own stuff as well. I've adapted prose to TV, prose to movies, prose to comics. So talk about process there on any of that stuff.
Awesome. Gary?
Hi, I'm Gary Kloster. I've got a bunch of different short stories that are science fiction and fantasy, but kind of related to this. My first book that came out was a tie-in with the role-playing game Pathfinder. So it's one of the Pathfinder tales called Fire Soul, and I've got another one coming out probably next year with them. So that's kind of my particular niche with this topic, at least.
Awesome. My name is Monica Valentinelli. I'm your moderator for today. Most people know me for my work on Firefly. I've been working on Firefly since 2012. I did the role-playing game series, and then I also recently released a dictionary and phrase book in April, which is a dictionary and phrase book, in case you were wondering, which was super fun. And in addition to that, I've also worked on Shadowrun, Vampire the Masquerade as properties as well. Before we get too deep into the topic, though, what I would like to do is ask my fellow panelists, what are some of the terms that we are going to be using during this panel? Because I've already heard some terminology that we may use on the craft side that our audience may not be familiar with, like things like intellectual property and licensing and other things like that. Are there any terms, Chris?
Oh, terms. I don't know. Any terms that the audience
Like when we use the words intellectual property, does that ring any bells with anybody?
Everyone's
okay.
okay.
Everybody's very, very smart at Bullcon. The last time I did this panel, they said, no, we have no idea. So you guys are awesome.
Work for hire.
Work for hire, okay. Do you want to cover that?
Yeah, that would be good.
People know what that is.
Do you know what work for hire is? There's a bunch of naughty shaky heads. So how about we talk about how we get hired for these projects, and then we can talk about the process of how we adapt them. Would you like to start, Gary, since you already
Sure.
work for hire a bit?
I got hired I went to a con. I went to Gen Con in Indianapolis, which is a huge gaming con, and James Sutter's the editor for Pathfinder Tales, the fiction part of that gaming system, and he was there doing a panel on like their authors and introducing them, and then afterwards they were all talking, and I was doing the lurking thing, and they did I'm surprised nobody asked how to become an author, so I went up and said, actually.
Can you please explain the lurking thing for the audience?
The lurking thing is when you're, after the panel and you're just sort of standing around casually waiting to talk. And there's an inn. So I went up and he basically explained that they like to have people that already had some experience with writing, and so I gave them my credits, and then we started. He asked me to send him some samples, which I did, and then we started doing pitches back and forth.
That's cool. Chris, can you think of a recent project or maybe a transitional project, like when you moved from prose to fiction or something like that? Like how did you get hired for some of those?
Yeah, networking would be number 1, 2, and 3. I think obviously you have to have publications, like you said. I mean, you need to get the foot in the door somewhere, somehow. You need to publish comics or literature or something. But after that, it's a question of, and I didn't even say, I live in Porto Alegre, Brazil. I'm originally from the United States, but I live in Brazil. I've lived there for 10 years. So I bridge as well between fandom in Brazil and in the United States, and I come to Worldcon pretty much every year, so I don't lose the contacts here. And it's funny, and I worked a long time in the video game industry. I was a studio head and sold a company to Ubisoft, which is a major multinational games company. And so, each experience there and each medium takes me into another world and another group of people, and you go in and you start meeting people. If you're, it helps to be a little bit outgoing at least, or force yourself to talk and make these contacts. But I think most of the deals, I worked on 30 video games, for example, during my career in video games, and I was the one who had to sign deals for my company at the time. And most of those deals, it was very rare for me to sign a video game deal without some kind of personal contact. Like, they had to have seen my face. I've signed, like out of those 30 deals, maybe 1 or 2 I signed completely online, completely, okay, well, we'll trust you. We believe that you're not a robot. But it helps when they see that you're not a robot. That's a big thing. So definitely when I tell people, and this is what I tell starting writers and people who are going into, whether it's movies or comics or whatever, go to the events, meet people, go to workshops, go to any kind of place where you're actually going to meet professionals of the area you want to work in. So like you said, Gen Con. You want to work in games? Gen Con. You want to work in video games? Go to GDC, Game Developers Conference, or Game Connection, events like that. And you want to work in comics? Go to things like, and not Comic-Con. Comic-Con, you'll just get lost in the crowd there. You'll be one face in 100,000. But if you go to something like Baltimore Comic-Con, which is a small professional event, if you're interested in literature, go to World Fantasy, which is more of a professional event, which has more contact with people working in that industry. And that's
Cool.
usually my advice there.
Cool. So we've talked a little bit about how they got jobs, and I would like to hear then, after you got hired, what were some of the steps for the contracting and some of the things that kind of led you up to the point where we want to start talking about process? Like what were some of those initial things that you had?
Did we define work for hire for the people who didn't? I don't think we did.
Okay, do you want to go ahead and
yeah.
do that in terms of the contracting?
Yeah, work for hire is when you don't own the property. Like when I was contacted to do, my agent was contacted about an author to do a Star Wars novel, and she suggested me, and that's how I got my Star Wars novel, basically. But I don't own Star Wars, I'm just being contracted to write this particular novel. When, like a normal, another kind of fancy book, because I have I own the original concept for this, then it's not work for hire. So that's just the difference between that.
That came up as part of the contract process. So after your agent got contacted,
you're being contracted to write a novel, a work for hire novel, which is a media tie-in. And the process was, we did the contract first, and then I had to submit an outline that they had to approve. And that took a long time, and eventually we got the novel, the outline approved, and then I worked back and forth with the editor on some things because she wanted a lot of oversight over it at first, and then basically finished the book. And after that, after the work, it's just, for books really, it's just a matter of a different sort of contract than it would be for an original novel, or for a novel from an original idea. So it's not too much of a different process for media tie-in writing. The difference comes in that you're trying to write the characters and form the plot to be as much a part of that universe as possible. You want to make it like another episode of the show or another movie, but with just an unlimited special effects budget is what you want. So basically,
I do want to come back to that in just a second. I wanted to give you a chance. So you've done a lot of different things.
So, you know, just building on what she said, sort of a continuation of that thought, one of the things that makes a work-for-hire contract different from when you do your own original work is that you typically get no rights to, say, audio, no movie rights, no ancillary rights of any kind, and oftentimes no back-end royalty payments. You may, depending upon who you are and who they are, and you know, a lot of different factors, get a small royalty at the back end. And often these get down to some interesting decisions. I'll give you an example. So when they approached me about writing Halo, Halo the Flood, one of the many Halo novels, it was a novelization, which is different than writing a tie-in where you're creating something completely fresh. A novelization is just taking the game and literally turning it into a book. Two things about that. One, you can just do it straight ahead, or two, you can do what I tried to do, which was to inject new material into it, which has to be negotiated with, you know, the licensors and the team. And I successfully did that, and I needed to do that for my own sanity because I just could not sit down and just, you know, completely go from a game to a book. I had to have something there to keep me interested. And then on the deal, you know, they offered me, I had a choice. I could, you know, take a certain amount up front, a larger amount, or I could take a smaller amount with a royalty at the back end. That's where you as a writer have to decide, you know, what do I think? Is this really going to go somewhere? Does it have that potential? Because if it does, I want to be on that royalty.